Cowboys Nation, there's always something to talk about with this team, and today we're going to break down one of the most underrated yet important aspects of the season, the practice squad. A lot of fans tend to overlook it, but when injuries pile up, when depth is tested, when you need that surprise contributor who's been grinding away out of the spotlight, this is where the Cowboys will go. That is why it is worth diving deep into who is here, what kind of role they might fill, and which names you need to keep in the back of your mind, because at some point this year, they could be wearing the star on Sunday afternoon. Starting at quarterback, Will Grier is the familiar face running things on the practice squad. He has been in this position before, hanging on as the third quarterback, helping with preparation and giving the defense solid looks in practice. He is not likely to see game action unless disaster strikes, but do not underestimate his value. A seasoned veteran in the room who knows the offense, understands the terminology, and can help the starters with their film study and practice rhythm is someone the coaches want to keep around. Some wondered if he would sneak onto the active roster, especially after the flashes from Joe Milton, but ultimately Grier has settled into this backup role that still carries importance. Moving into the backfield, Malik Davis is the running back currently stationed on the practice squad. He has bounced in and out of this position, even being signed right before a game only to contribute with some solid carries. Davis has been part of this organization before, and while he is not the flashiest name, he runs hard, knows the system, and gives the Cowboys flexibility if they need someone to step up because of injuries. Having that familiarity with the team and coaching staff makes him a reliable option to call upon when depth becomes an issue. Now the wide receiver group is where things start to get interesting. Jalen Cropper is one of the standouts here. He has been hanging around this roster long enough that fans are beginning to recognize his name. He already earned a game day call-up, which practice squad players can do up to 3 times in a season, and he may see even more chances given the way injuries have hit the wide receiver room. He can contribute on special teams, but there is also a real possibility that he find a role on offense if the need arises. Alongside him is Jalen Brooks, who was with the active roster last year. Brooks may not put up flashy numbers as a receiver, but he brings toughness and commitment on special teams, which makes him valuable to the coaching staff. Then there is Tyrus Holden, a developmental receiver with raw talent. He is not quite ready to be a steady contributor, but his training camp flashes showed there is something to build on. The issue has been consistency, but if injuries force the Cowboys to dig deep, Holden could get a chance to prove himself. Finally, there's Paris Campbell, a name that came back around after spending time with the team earlier in the year. He was initially waived after an injury, but with the news about Cavani Turpin's setback, Campbell's return makes sense as an emergency option. He has experience, he has speed, and if he can stay healthy, he provides depth the Cowboys can call on a pinch. At tight end, there are 2 names worth mentioning. Princeton Fant is undersized compared to some at the position, but he makes up for it with determination and blocking ability that exceeds expectations for his frame. He saw time on special teams and carved out a reputation as a grinder. Alongside him is Rayon Fairweather, an undrafted free agent out of Auburn who impressed during preseason. He did not make the active roster, but showed enough flashes to stick around. These are the kind of players who quietly work their way into roles as the season goes on, especially if depth gets tested at tight end. The offensive line situation is always crucial in Dallas, and the practice squad reflects that. Jamarcus Christian, an offensive tackle, provides depth at a position that desperately needs it given how injuries have hit the starters. The Cowboys went heavy on linemen after the final roster cuts because they knew the group was banged up. Wesley French is another addition, a versatile interior lineman who can step in at center or guard. He has familiarity with some of the coaching staff from his time in Indianapolis and provides that break-in case of emergency type of insurance. Having that kind of flexibility on the practice squad is critical because offensive line injuries can derail an entire season if there are no backups ready to step in. Shifting over to defense, Ernest Brown IV holds down a spot on the practice squad at defensive tackle. There was even some initial confusion when it looked like he might make the 53-man roster, but ultimately he has been slotted back here as a depth option. Adedeo Ajaloy is part of the International Pathway Program and represents more of a long-term development piece than someone likely to see action this season. He brings raw athletic tools, but this year is about growth and learning the Cowboys system. Another intriguing defensive name is Isaiah Land, a player who has bounced around a bit but continues to generate attention because of his potential. Dallas brought him back after a stint in Indianapolis, and while he may not crack the rotation right away, he has shown flashes that make him one of the more notable defensive practice squad members. Linebacker depth is represented by Justin Barron. He is a bit light for the position, but his history at Syracuse showcased his ability to be an effective special teams player. That might be his best path to sticking long-term in Dallas, carving out that niche role as a high-effort contributor in the kicking game. At corner, Robert Rochelle provides veteran depth. He has been around the league, and his value, like many others on this list, comes from special teams and the ability to step in if needed. Corey Ballantyne is another corner on the practice squad, someone the Cowboys clearly had their eye on going back to his draft days. He has bounced around, but the front office likes his skill set enough to bring him in as a depth piece. Finally, there's safety Elijah Clark, and he is a player worth keeping an eye on. He was one of the highest-paid, undrafted free agents signed by the Cowboys and impressed during the preseason. With injuries piling up in the secondary, there's a very real chance Clark gets a game day call-up in the near future. His size, instincts, and willingness to play physical football make him an intriguing developmental option and possibly someone who finds himself on the field sooner than expected. This practice squad is bigger than usual thanks to the international pathway exemption, which gives Dallas 17 total players to work with. It is a group that blends developmental projects with veteran insurance and special teams depth. And while many fans might shrug at the names, the reality is that every single season players from the practice squad are forced into action, and some of them even turn into long-term contributors. For the Cowboys, the mix of wide receivers, offensive line insurance, and secondary depth stands out as particularly important given the injuries that have already piled up. This entire setup is a reminder that success in the NFL does not come from the stars alone. It comes from the total roster, from having options when things go wrong, and from developing young players behind the scenes. Dallas has built a practice squad with familiar names, developmental projects, and some stopgap veterans who can help in a pinch. As the season unfolds, these are the players who could turn from afterthoughts into key contributors when the spotlight suddenly shines their way. When you look at the way the Cowboys have built this roster, what stands out is how many of the names on the practice squad already have some kind of story with this team. It is not just a random collection of unsigned players waiting for a chance. It is a carefully chosen group with specific purposes, each one filling a gap that the coaching staff knows might open up. That is why it makes sense to really examine what these roles mean and how quickly a practice squad player can go from anonymity to relevance. In the modern NFL, it happens faster than anyone expects, and with the kind of injury luck the Cowboys have had the past few years, this group could be called upon sooner rather than later. Take Will Grier, for example. He has been around, he has been the emergency plan, and he has been in quarterback rooms long enough to know that his value is not necessarily going to be measured in passing yards on Sundays. Instead, it is about how prepared Dak Prescott and Trey Lance are because of the work they do with Grier during the week. It is about the way he helps run scout team, the way he processes defenses, and the way he communicates what he sees on film. Fans may never cheer his name during a game, but the veterans and coaches inside the building understand the role he plays in keeping the offense sharp. Malik Davis is another name that fits this profile of trusted depth. His journey has been about carving out a role through persistence. He is not a flashy runner, but he has vision, patience, and the ability to squeeze yards out of tight spaces. Those are traits coaches love when they need a reliable option to hand the ball to if injuries strike. His familiarity with the playbook gives him an edge over any outsider who might be signed off the street. Running back is a tough position where bodies were down quickly, and Davis being there is part of a larger insurance policy that Dallas is keeping close at hand. The receivers are where the real potential drama lies. Jalen Cropper already showed he could be elevated and give you something when the depth chart thins out. He has speed and energy, and while he may not yet be a polished NFL receiver, the fact that he can also chip in on special teams makes him doubly valuable. Jalen Brooks is a similar case, someone who has proven he can be trusted in limited action, not because of eye-popping stats, but because of his effort and willingness to play whatever role is asked of him. Then you have someone like Tyrus Holden, the kind of prospect coaches see as a work in progress, but with upside if he can ever find consistency. He is the type of player who benefits most from the practice squad structure because it gives him the time to develop his game without being thrown into the fire too early. And then there is Paris Campbell, who has been in and out of the building already, a reminder of how the NFL is constantly shifting. His return lines up with the injury to Cavani Turpin, and while timing might not be perfect, Campbell's speed and experience give the Cowboys an emergency option who already understands what is expected. Tight end depth is also significant. Princeton Fant may be undersized, but his determination and willingness to block bigger defenders make him valuable in ways that do not show up on the stat sheet. Coaches like players who know their role and execute it without complaint, and Fant fits that description. Rayon Fairweather is another example of a long shot who made enough plays in preseason to earn a chance to keep developing. For undrafted free agents, the practice squad is often the bridge between raw potential and a real career. If Fairweather continues to progress, he could be the kind of player who sneaks onto the active roster in the future. On the offensive line, the Cowboys are smart to keep extra insurance. Injuries up front can ruin an entire season, so having Jamarcus Christian and Wesley French available gives the staff options. Christian can hold down tackle spots in practice, and French can fill in on the interior. The fact that French has previous experience with one of the coaches makes the transition smoother. These players may not be household names, but they represent stability when the inevitable injuries come. The Cowboys know they cannot afford to be caught shorthanded in the trenches. Defensively, there are a few interesting storylines. Ernest Brown IV had that brief moment of confusion where it looked like he made the active roster. And while that did not happen, the fact that he was even considered says something about how the staff views him. He gives them another body inside when they need one. Adedeo Ajaloi is the pure developmental piece, benefiting from the International Pathway Program. He may not play this season, but he is learning and improving in a professional environment. Isaiah Land is a name many fans remember, a player with pass rush potential who was brought back after time in Indianapolis. If he ever gets the opportunity, he is the type who could make an impact because rushing the passer is always a premium skill. At linebacker, Justin Barron brings effort and athleticism. He might be undersized for a traditional linebacker role, but his special teams background makes him an asset in a different way. Teams always need players willing to run down the field and make tackles on coverage units, and Barron is built for that job. In the secondary, Robert Rochelle and Corey Ballantyne add experienced depth. Rochelle has been around the league, and his veteran presence is useful in practice, while Ballantyne has bounced around but has traits that still intrigue Dallas. Having these corners in the wings matters because cornerback is one of the hardest positions to keep healthy throughout a long season. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Whispers around the league are growing louder. Chris Jones might just be about to reshape the Dallas Cowboys defensive line. After what sources are calling a massive contract signing, Jones has reportedly taken the reins of a unit that's been searching for an identity, sparking excitement and a fair bit of speculation among fans and insiders alike. The buzz started quietly, with insiders hinting that the Cowboys were serious about making a splash in free agency. But the announcement of Jones' deal has sent shockwaves through NFL circles. Known for his disruptive presence on the field, Jones' arrival in Dallas is being viewed as a potential game-changer. Coaches are reportedly thrilled with the possibility of anchoring the defensive line around a player of his caliber, while players on the roster are said to be energized by the chance to learn from a proven veteran. Some analysts are already speculating that the Cowboys could transform from a team with flashes of defensive brilliance to one that consistently dominates the trenches. Yet amid the excitement, questions linger. How will Jones' style mesh with the existing scheme? Will his leadership translate into the locker room, or will adjustments be needed to fully integrate him? Rumors suggest that discussions behind the scenes have been intense, with the coaching staff and front office meticulously planning how to maximize his impact. Even the fans are joining the conversation, flooding social media with predictions ranging from immediate Super Bowl contention to cautious optimism about the team's long-term strategy. Whatever the reality, one thing is clear. The Cowboys' defensive line has a new face at the forefront, and Chris Jones is the talk of the town. As training camp approaches, all eyes will be on Dallas, with insiders promising that this signing could be the start of something big, or at least a storyline that will dominate headlines for months. In the meantime, the speculation alone is enough to keep the rumor mill spinning at full speed. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.